The whole point was scaring, sort of abusing the audience. Jaws, scaring, frightening us. This thing is sort of, what's mysterious is unknown, and we love it, rather than running from that shark or running from the devil.
Picture this. You're watching one of the most famous alien movies ever made, and you think you know everything about it. The glowing spaceship, the mysterious mountain, the haunting music that gives you goosebumps every single time. But what if I told you that the real story behind Close Encounters of the Third Kind is way more incredible than anything you see on screen? The actors who brought this movie to life have been keeping secrets for almost 50 years. Secrets about how they nearly lost their mind preparing for their roles. Secrets about why the government didn't want this movie to exist. And secrets about a filming location so sacred that it changed everyone who stepped foot on it. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden truth behind one of Steven Spielberg's greatest masterpieces. Trust me, after you hear these stories, you'll never watch Close Encounters the same way again. When Hollywood said no to wonder, before Close Encounters became a classic, it was the movie that nobody wanted to make. Can you imagine that? Steven Spielberg, fresh off his massive success with Jaws, couldn't get a single studio excited about his alien story. But why? The problem was simple. Spielberg's idea was completely backwards from what everyone expected. In the 1970s, aliens in movies were always the bad guys. They came to Earth to destroy cities, kill people, and take over the planet. That's what audiences wanted to see, or at least that's what studio bosses thought. But Spielberg had a totally different vision. He wanted to make a movie about aliens who were actually peaceful, aliens who came to Earth not to hurt us, but to teach us something beautiful. To the money men in Hollywood, this sounded like box office poison. Richard Dreyfuss, who played the main character Roy Neary, later talked about how confused the studio executives were. They kept asking the same questions over and over. Where are the explosions? Where are the evil aliens? Where's the part where Earth fights back? They couldn't understand a movie where the aliens weren't trying to kill everyone. The studios wanted War of the Worlds. But Spielberg was offering something closer to a religious experience. He wanted audiences to feel wonder, not terror. He wanted them to look up at the stars and feel hope, not fear. This was such a radical idea that almost every major studio in Hollywood turned him down multiple times. Even when Columbia Pictures finally agreed to make the movie, they did it reluctantly. They weren't betting on the story. They were betting on Spielberg himself. His success with Jaws had earned him enough credibility to get one more shot, even if nobody understood what he was trying to do. The tension between Spielberg and the studio never really went away during production. Terry Garr, who played Roy's frustrated wife, revealed that the script was constantly being rewritten because executives kept trying to add more traditional action scenes. They wanted alien battles and military confrontations. Spielberg kept taking those scenes out and putting the focus back on emotion and wonder. This wasn't just about making a movie. It was about protecting an idea that Spielberg believed in with all his heart. He was convinced that audiences were ready for something deeper than just another monster movie. He wanted to tell a story about what it really means to encounter something beyond our understanding. But convincing Hollywood was just the beginning. The real magic happened when Spielberg found the perfect place to tell a story. A place so special that would transform everyone who worked there. A mountain that changed everything. When Steven Spielberg was looking for the perfect spot where aliens might land on Earth, he didn't just want any random location. He needed somewhere that would make audiences believe that visitors from space would actually choose to meet us there. After searching all over America, he found in Wyoming, Devil's Tower. Now, you might think Devil's Tower is just a big, interesting rock formation. But to Native American tribes like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Kiowa, this place has been sacred for thousands of years. In their stories, the tower is a bridge between our world and the spirit world. It's a place where humans can communicate with powers beyond our understanding. Spielberg chose Devil's Tower for exactly that reason. He wasn't just picking a cool-looking backdrop for his movie. He was choosing a location that already had centuries of meaning about contact between different worlds. It was like the Earth itself was helping him tell his story. Richard Dreyfuss described his first day filming at Devil's Tower as something he'll never forget. He said that just standing underneath this massive rock formation made him believe that aliens really could come there. It wasn't just movie magic anymore. The place itself felt otherworldly, ancient and powerful. Melinda Dillon, who played Jillian in the movie, said filming there felt more like going on a spiritual journey than making a Hollywood movie. She compared it to filming inside a cathedral that had been built by nature itself. The wind, the height, the way the tower seemed to reach up toward the stars, it all made everyone feel like they were part of something much bigger than just entertainment. What's really amazing is how the location affected the performances of all the actors. They weren't just pretending to be amazed by an alien encounter. They were actually experiencing something amazing just by being there. The tower made them move differently, speak differently, and feel the weight of what their characters were going through. Francois Truffaut, the famous French director who played the scientist in the movie, noticed how the sacred nature of the place changed the entire mood of production. He said it felt like they were making a movie where science and spirituality could exist together without fighting each other. The tower represented hope instead of fear, possibility instead of danger. By the time they filmed the final scenes of the alien spaceship landing, it didn't feel like they were just making a movie anymore. It felt like they were witnessing something real and important. The tower had become more than just a location. It had become a character in the story, a silent witness to humanity reaching out to touch the infinite, the spaceship that fooled everyone. One of the most unforgettable moments in movie history is when a massive alien spaceship slowly descends from the sky in Close Encounters. It's enormous, glowing with thousands of lights and humming with an otherworldly presence that makes you believe you're watching real first contact with aliens. But here's the secret that will blow your mind. That incredible spaceship was actually tiny. The whole thing was just 4 feet tall. Yes, you heard that right. 4 feet. The spaceship that looked like it could carry thousands of aliens was actually small enough to fit on a table. So how did Spielberg and his team make something so small look so massive and real? The answer is pure movie magic combined with brilliant creativity. The miniature spaceship was covered with thousands of tiny lights, each one carefully programmed and timed to create specific patterns and effects. It took weeks just to wire all those lights and make sure they would work perfectly during filming. Richard Dreyfuss was amazed when he first saw the miniature model up close. Even though he knew it was fake, he said it was absolutely mesmerizing to watch. The ship didn't just look like a machine, it looked alive. The lights seemed to pulse and react like the spaceship was actually thinking and feeling. But the most incredible part wasn't just the model itself. It was how Spielberg chose to film the scenes with it. Instead of adding all the lights and effects later, like most movies do today, everything was done live on the set. When you see the actors staring up in wonder at the spaceship, they're actually watching a real light show happening right in front of them. Terry Garr described the experience as feeling like she was inside a living, breathing machine. The lights would flash and dance in perfect sync with John Williams' famous 5-note melody. The actors weren't just pretending to be amazed, they were genuinely amazed by what they were seeing. This live approach created something very special in the performances. The cast members moved and reacted naturally to what was happening because something really was happening. Their expressions of wonder, fear, and excitement were completely genuine. They were experiencing their own version of first contact, even if it was with a 4-foot model instead of a real alien ship. The design of the spaceship itself was also crucial to the movie's message. Spielberg had no interest in creating something that looked like a weapon or a war machine. Instead, the ship had gentle, curved lines and soft, welcoming lights. It looked more like a floating cathedral than a military vehicle. Francois Truffaut said watching the ship arrive felt like witnessing a sacred visitation rather than invasion. This wasn't a craft built for conquest. It was designed for communication and peace. Every detail, from the way it moved to the colors of its lights, reinforced Spielberg's belief that contact with aliens could be beautiful instead of terrifying. An actor's dangerous journey into madness. To understand why Close Encounters feels so emotionally powerful, you need to know about the extreme lengths Richard Dreyfuss went to in order to play Roy Neary. His character's journey from normal suburban dad to obsessed seeker of truth wasn't just acting. Dreyfuss made it real by putting himself through a psychological transformation that was both brilliant and dangerous. Dreyfuss knew that Roy's breakdown after seeing the UFO had to feel completely authentic. So instead of just reading the script and showing up to work, he decided to actually live through his own version of what Roy was experiencing. For weeks before and during filming, Dreyfuss deliberately isolated himself from his friends and family. He wanted to know what it felt like to be cut off from normal life. But he didn't stop there. Dreyfuss spent countless hours interviewing real people who claimed they had encountered UFOs or experienced other unexplainable events. He wanted to understand how these experiences changed them, how they moved, how they spoke, and how they dealt with other people not believing their stories. He also dove deep into research about mental health, studying how trauma and obsession actually show up in a person's daily behavior. He read about obsessive-compulsive disorder and how the brain tries to process things that don't make sense. All of this research wasn't just for background knowledge. Dreyfuss was using it to rewire his own behavior for the role. One of the most famous scenes in the movie perfectly shows how this research paid off. You know that moment where Roy starts sculpting Devil's Tower out of his mashed potatoes at the dinner table? That scene wasn't even in the original script. Dreyfuss improvised it based on everything he had learned about compulsive behavior and how people with obsessions often express them through repetitive actions. The mashed potato scene is brilliant because it shows Roy's breakdown without using any words. He's not just trying to remember something he saw. His brain is trying to make sense of an experience that's too big for his conscious mind to handle. The compulsion to build the tower over and over again shows how the encounter has rewired his thinking. Terry Garr, who played his wife in the movie, admitted that sometimes Dreyfuss's intense method acting was actually scary to be around. She said there were moments when she wasn't sure where the character ended and the real Richard Dreyfuss began. His obsession felt so real that it made everyone else in the cast respond with genuine unease and concern. This level of commitment didn't just affect Dreyfuss's individual performance. It changed the entire mood of every scene he was in. When Roy was falling apart, it felt real because in some ways, Dreyfuss was actually letting himself fall apart. He wasn't just pretending to be a man, losing his grip on reality. He was experiencing what that loss felt like. The result was a performance that went way beyond typical Hollywood acting. Roy Neary became a symbol for all of us when we're caught between the world we know and something larger that we can't quite understand. Dreyfuss made audiences feel that internal struggle, that pull between safety and truth, between the familiar and the infinite. When art film met blockbuster magic, one of the most surprising casting choices in Close Encounters was Steven Spielberg's decision to hire Francois Truffaut to play the scientist Claude Lacombe. This wasn't just unusual, it was revolutionary. Truffaut wasn't a Hollywood actor. He was one of the most respected filmmakers in the world, known for beautiful, deeply human movies like The 400 Blows and Day for Night. So, why would Spielberg want a French director who had never acted in a major American movie to play such an important role? The answer reveals something crucial about what Spielberg was trying to achieve with Close Encounters. Spielberg had been a huge fan of Truffaut's work for years. He loved how Truffaut's movies always felt emotionally honest and quietly observant, instead of big dramatic moments. Truffaut's films found power in small, truthful interactions between people. Spielberg knew that Close Encounters needed that same kind of authentic humanity, especially in the character of the lead scientist. When Spielberg first approached him, Truffaut was hesitant. He told Spielberg, "I'm not an actor. I can only play myself." But that's exactly what Spielberg wanted. He wasn't looking for someone to perform the role of a scientist. He wanted someone who could bring genuine curiosity and wisdom to the screen just by being themselves. Because Truffaut had never acted before, Spielberg had to direct him in a completely different way than he directed the other actors. Often, Spielberg would physically act out entire scenes himself, showing Truffaut exactly what movements and expressions he wanted. Truffaut would then copy these gestures with careful attention to detail. To some people watching, this might have looked strange or artificial. But what came out on screen was something much deeper than regular acting. Truffaut wasn't performing emotions, he was channeling them. Richard Dreyfuss put it perfectly when he said, Truffaut didn't act, he simply existed. That existence, calm and thoughtful and centered, became incredibly important to the overall tone of the movie. While Roy Neary was falling apart and other characters were panicking or getting confused, Claude Lacombe remained steady and curious. He looked at the alien phenomenon not as something to fear, but as something to understand and appreciate. Truffaut's approach to the unknown became a model for how Spielberg wanted audiences to feel about the aliens. Instead of treating First Contact as a crisis that needed to be solved or survived, Lacombe treated it as an opportunity for communication and growth. That single change in perspective shifted the entire meaning of the story. The casting of Truffaut also brought a distinctly European sensibility to what could have been just another American blockbuster. His presence suggested that the story was about more than just spectacular special effects. It was about the very human desire to reach beyond ourselves and connect with something larger. Truffaut didn't just show up and read his lines. He actively contributed ideas and insights that made the movie richer and more thoughtful. Spielberg often relied on Truffaut's instincts about how certain scenes should feel, and many of their creative conversations found their way into the final film. Through the character Claude Lacombe, Francois Truffaut gave Close Encounters a kind of quiet authority that communicated the film's deepest message without ever having to state it directly. This wasn't just a movie about aliens visiting Earth. It was about wonder, curiosity, and the basic human need to reach out and make contact with the infinite mystery around us. The 5 notes that changed everything. If you've ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's no way you can forget those 5 simple musical notes that the aliens use to communicate with humans. Do-re-mi-do-do. They're haunting, mysterious, and somehow they stick in your brain long after the movie ends. But what most people don't realize is that these weren't just random notes that composer John Williams picked because they sounded cool. Creating this alien language was actually one of the most carefully researched parts of the entire movie. John Williams approached it with the seriousness of scientists trying to figure out how 2 completely different species might actually communicate with each other. He studied mathematical relationships between different tones and frequencies, looking for something that could theoretically be understood by any intelligent life form in the universe. The goal wasn't just to write a catchy melody. Williams needed to create something that felt elemental and basic, but also meaningful and emotional. These 5 notes had to suggest peace, curiosity, and intelligence all at the same time. They had to work as both music and as a form of language that could bridge the gap between humans and aliens. What made the musical communication scenes even more powerful was that everything was performed live on the movie set. When you watch the famous sequence where the humans and the alien spaceship have their musical conversation, the actors weren't just pretending to react to effects that would be added later. They were actually experiencing a carefully choreographed symphony of lights and sounds happening right in front of them. Francois Truffaut later explained that it felt like they weren't just making a movie during those scenes. They were actually participating in a real musical conversation with something otherworldly. The timing of the lights, the volume and pitch of the notes, and the reactions of all the actors had to be perfectly synchronized, just like musicians playing together in an orchestra. This live performance approach created something incredibly rare in science fiction movies. Instead of feeling cold and mechanical, the alien contact felt warm and alive with genuine emotion. The actors' expressions of wonder and excitement were completely real because they were actually experiencing something wonderful and exciting. For Roy Neary's character, the 5-note melody became much more than just a signal from space. It became an obsession that took over his entire life. The notes appeared in his dreams and his sketches, and even in his food when he sculpted them into his mashed potatoes. They weren't just sounds to him. They were a calling, pulling him away from his ordinary life towards something extraordinary and life-changing. Richard Dreyfuss said the melody represented our deepest human need to communicate and connect with something greater than ourselves. It wasn't really about aliens at all. It was about that feeling we all have sometimes, that sense that there's something more out there waiting for us if we're brave enough to reach for it. What's even more amazing is how the 5-note concept has influenced real science since the movie came out. Researchers who study how we might actually communicate with extraterrestrial intelligence have pointed to Close Encounters as a surprisingly thoughtful example of using music as a universal language. After all, music is based on mathematics, and mathematics might be the one thing we truly share with any other intelligent species in the universe. John Williams didn't just compose a movie theme. He created a bridge that connected the characters to the aliens, the audience to the story, and all of us to the possibility that somewhere out there, Someone might be listening and trying to talk back. The conspiracy that felt too real. While Close Encounters is famous for its beautiful message about peaceful alien contact, there's a darker thread running through the entire movie that made 1970s audiences deeply uncomfortable. The theme of government cover-ups and official secrecy wasn't just a plot device that Spielberg invented. It was based on real research into how governments actually respond to unexplained phenomena. During the preparation for the movie, Spielberg consulted with military advisors and UFO researchers who had spent years studying official protocols for dealing with potential extraterrestrial contact. Many of the scenes showing how the government and military respond to the alien encounters were based on documented strategies and procedures that actually existed. The misinformation campaigns, the rapid deployment of secret military units, the way civilian witnesses were discredited and silenced, all these elements were rooted in real government playbooks. Cast members later confirmed that the portrayal of official secrecy in the movie was startlingly accurate to what some insiders believe would actually happen if aliens ever made contact with Earth. This authenticity hit American audiences like a lightning bolt in 1977. The country was still reeling from the Watergate scandal, which had completely shattered public trust in government institutions. People had learned that their leaders were capable of lying about almost anything, so the idea that they might also lie about aliens didn't seem far-fetched at all. Richard Dreyfuss later reflected that audiences were completely ready to believe that the government would cover up alien contact because they already suspected their leaders were covering up everything else. The timing of the movie's release wasn't just fortunate, it was explosive. It gave voice to the growing suspicion that ordinary citizens weren't being told the truth about things that really mattered. The conspiracy elements in Close Encounters weren't just paranoid fantasy. They were based on documented cases of military and government secrecy around unexplained aerial phenomena. Spielberg had done his homework, and it showed in every scene involving official cover-ups and disinformation. According to some behind-the-scenes accounts, certain government officials actually expressed private concerns about how the movie might influence public perception of official secrecy. Spielberg had struck too close to home. The line between entertainment and implication had become uncomfortably blurred. This thread of conspiracy and cover-up added a chilling edge to what was otherwise a hopeful and uplifting story. While the aliens were portrayed as peaceful and benevolent, the humans in positions of power were not always shown in the best light. Scientists were pushed aside, civilians were silenced, and truth became a casualty of the need to maintain control. Spielberg masterfully used this contrast to force audiences to ask an uncomfortable question. What if the aliens aren't the real problem? What if the biggest obstacle to meaningful contact with otherworldly intelligence is our own governments and institutions? The behavior portrayed in the movie, the suppression of information, the gaslighting of witnesses, the disinformation campaigns, all sounded frighteningly familiar to people who had lived through the revelations of the Watergate era. Today, with renewed government interest in unidentified aerial phenomena making headlines, those scenes feel less like paranoid fantasy and more like prophetic warning. But here's what makes Close Encounters truly special. It doesn't let that cynicism and distrust win. The movie acknowledges our human weaknesses and our tendency to fear and control what we don't understand, but it refuses to let those flaws define us. In the end, it's not a government official or a scientist or a military leader who makes first contact with the aliens. It's an ordinary man, a husband and father, who chooses to step beyond fear and into wonder. The legacy that lives on. Close Encounters of the Third Kind wasn't just a movie about aliens. It was about faith, wonder, and the courage to believe in something bigger than ourselves. From Richard Dreyfuss's dangerous method acting to the sacred power of Devil's Tower, from Francois Truffaut's quiet wisdom to John Williams's universal musical language, every element of this film was crafted with extraordinary care and intention. The cast and crew didn't just make a movie. They created a meditation on what it means to be human in a universe full of mystery and possibility. They showed us that the unknown doesn't have to be terrifying. Sometimes it can be transcendent. What makes the behind-the-scenes story so powerful is how they reveal the dedication and artistry that went into creating something truly special. These weren't just actors showing up to collect paychecks. They were artists and visionaries who believed in Spielberg's radical idea that wonder could be more powerful than fear. The secrets the cast kept for nearly 50 years show us that making Close Encounters was more than a job for everyone involved. It was a spiritual journey that changed them as people and as artists. They experienced their own version of first contact, not with aliens, but with the infinite possibilities of human creativity and imagination. Today, as we stand on the edge of new discoveries about our place in the universe, the message of Close Encounters feels more relevant than ever. It reminds us that our greatest adventures don't come from conquering the unknown, but from opening ourselves to it with curiosity, humility, and hope. The five-note melody still echoes in our collective memory. Devil's Tower still reaches toward the stars. And somewhere in the cosmos, something might still be listening, waiting for us to be brave enough to answer back. Now that you know the incredible true stories behind one of cinema's greatest masterpieces, I hope you'll watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind with new eyes and an open heart. And if these behind-the-scenes secrets amaze you as much as they amaze me, please give this video a thumbs up, share with your friends who love movies, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories from the world of film. Trust me, we've got so many more mind-blowing secrets to reveal, and you won't want to miss a single one. Until next time, keep looking up at the stars and wondering what's looking back.